Good afternoon, everyone. Uh, See, today we are living in the era of technology disruption. Every other industry is getting, disrupted by technology, and healthcare is no exception. So, if you look at healthcare and life sciences across the value chain, you see a lot of technology innovations in drug discovery, in drug development, clinical trials, medical devices, care management, and also patient connect technologies, healthcare operations. And we know all these new technologies, AI, ML, IoT, genomics, wearables, and AR, VR, Metaverse, so to say. All these are actually, triggering these kind of innovations. And when we look at, all these innovations, these are not only shaping up the future of healthcare, but actually it is giving you new opportunities for every player in the industry, be it a life sciences player who can actually bring better therapies and better drugs to the market, better devices to the market, whether it is a, payers, providers who can actually try to improve health outcomes for the patients, give them a better experience, a much better enhanced experience, and most importantly, reduce cost. So in fact, I just want to share, previously we were talking about chat GPT and generative AI. So I just want to share, when I was preparing, we were talking about the session, I thought of taking help of chat GPT to see what thoughts it shares on the healthcare trends. So now I leave it to the audience to figure out what components of the session they see are influenced by chat GPT. And I'm sure this will be very interesting learning for most of you. The way we have structured this discussion is we will pick up 2-3 themes, and we'll go and talk about real life experiences, some use cases. But before we do that, I would request Ramesh and Shantha to give an overview about the organization and little bit of services they provide, because while you have good experience and your company comes with good experience, but the brand name that you represent came into existence very recently. So over to you, Ramesh.
Thanks, Amit. Yeah, I represent Sagility. Sagility is a new brand. We've been in existence for 6 months, but we've existed as an entity for over 20 years. So earlier we were part of what was HGS, Hinduja Global Solutions. And the healthcare business was carved out and taken over by Bearing. So we came into existence about a year ago, and we rebranded ourselves as Sagility. So we are a very healthcare-focused company. Our mission is to provide tech-enabled services and solutions to clients. So we build a lot of those technology in-house, but more importantly, we partner with a number of companies who have the technology. So our aim is not to do everything in-house, but also partner with people and ultimately provide a solution to our healthcare clients where it matters. And we serve both payers and providers, both on the administrative front as well as on the clinical front. So that's Sagility.
Good to know that, Ramesh. I also learned a little more about Sagility today. First of all, apologies to all of you sitting in the back of me. I feel a little bit like I'm showing my back to you. So please pardon me if you feel that way. Thanks for having us, Team NASSCOM, and Amit, thanks for moderating. Just to give you a little bit background of Carelon Global Solutions. First is the way we say it. Yeah, Carelon is the way to say it. It means full and complete care. So that's the company that I represent. Erstwhile, it was called Legato Health Technologies. So in case some of you heard it, maybe I should have done a quiz, right? How many of you knew Legato Health Technologies? If I were to ask you this again, what would you say? Yeah, please raise your hands. I want to really see who knows Legato Health Technologies. Okay, some hands are raised. Carelon Global Solutions? Now the entire room should have raised their hands, isn't it? I just said the name. So what we do is, like Ramesh said, we are in the IT and the business process operations of what we do. We serve over 119 American million lives, so we operate in the US market. Obviously, the work that we do here is predominantly on IT and business process operations across the value chain. Take a commercial business or take a government business or take corporate accounts, national accounts, predominantly a lot on the payer value chain. And what really differentiates us, the first and foremost is the people. We have 18,000 plus associates, more than associates, I would say entrepreneurs, who really drive, every day in terms of innovation and the value we drive for our clients and community. The second is really a lot of, partnership that we have built on driving scale of innovation, automation as a culture within the organization. And the third is really bringing value to the clients and community every single day. So the people that really make up a whole lot of what we do is really something we're all proud of. And thereby, the mission of our organization and the purpose is to improve the health of humanity and make a difference every single day as a whole health partner. So I hope it gives you a little bit of context. And in case you're interested to know more, I see quite a couple of our Carelon Global Solutions faces here and a booth. So you may want to know more of us there as well.
Yeah, thanks, Ramesh and Shantha. I just want to know from the organizer, where is the, how can I see the time? Just in case, okay, so maybe you can ring the bell and then tell me that if it is time. So, okay, so now we move on to the, first theme that we have picked up for the day. And this is around the future of drugs, diagnostics, devices. And I'll start off this particular area and talking about some of the innovations and some of the trends which are happening. So I'll pick up drug discovery as one area. And this is one area where, in fact, TCS is also doing a lot of work. Not many of you would know that TCS has set up our own DNA sequencing lab, and we are doing a lot of genome interpretation work, multi-omics analysis work. So this area actually we see is transforming, the drug discovery as we know today. It may vanish in future. Nobody will be doing drug discovery, and where it is going is it may transform into drug design and engineering. So we talked about generative AI models, and those kind of models even TCS researchers are working on, wherein you can actually design a particular drug which is more personalized, more predictive, and more controlled, targeted, rather than a drug discovery as it exists today. And there are many startups which are emerging in this space. Just to share one data point, today there are 3 drugs which have reached clinical trial stage, which were generated by AI/ML, use of AI/ML technologies. So drug discovery itself undergo a lot of transformation. And maybe Shantha, if you can share a little bit about drug development side, clinical trial side.
First of all, thank you, Amit. I don't know if he introduced himself well. He is from TCS, and he's actually leading wonderful things on all the things that he talked about, including personalized medicine. So if there are some more people who want to know more about that, I think we should absolutely get in touch with Amit. On the drug development per se, I think there has been a lot of conversations around AI since morning. I think generative AI, ChatGPT, and whatnot, right? So one of the, of course, we don't do drug development in what we do in Carelon Global Solutions, but given that I've had some past association in that area, one of the big transformation is really happening completely on AI-based clinical trial development. I'm sure every one of us know that on an average it takes about 10 to 15 years to actually come out with one drug. And in that one drug as well, it is important to see the number of exclusions that happens on various molecules at every stage. It's so much about the exclusions than about the inclusions. For example, if you take a CH4 methane, the hydrogen in the methane is different from H2O, which is water, and the hydrogen in that. So it's extremely important to look at the various steps and processes that happens in a clinical trial, right from some molecules and some family of compounds that traditionally scientists used to take. And then you do so much of those clinical trials on phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 with healthy individuals, and then go to mass population and then expand on different aspects, whether it is drug efficacy or whether it is the liquidity or whether it is the dosage. There are so many attributes that happen. So one of the important innovation that we have done in the past, and it is not currently in what we do in Carelon, but is basically completely making it AI-based clinical trial management in every step of the way, including the studies, investigation, connecting it to the various aspects of the outcomes that we can actually drive towards. So I see that there is a lot more that will happen in terms of, and at least the way we have seen it is, at least it is reduced 1/3 in terms of the time cycle that it takes for the drug development. And I think with all the ChatGPT and everything, I can only think of more and more what all scientists can do with respect to really treating it as a digital biology in my view. My view actually is the way this is going, it will truly become like digital biology, digital chemistry. I think we will all not talk about those organic chemistry and all of that in physical papers. It will truly be like...
And eventually it might move into a digital twin of a patient, which you can actually use
Absolutely.
to trial
Why
and
not?
probably monitor. Okay.
Absolutely.
But so now
Need of the
from
hour as well.
A drug and the therapy side, let us move on to the devices side. So I'll share one example, and this is around osteoarthritis, which is a very common condition. And many times you would have seen that patient need to do a knee implant, and for that you have to undergo the surgery. In most cases, the surgeon actually, when they open the knee, at that time they have to make the cut in the bone, and that decides basically how much recovery time you will take and what is the blood loss and how fit the implant would be in the knee. So in this particular case, if you think what is the future holding and what is going to happen, so now if you can take the X-ray and MRI scan of the patient knee beforehand, before the operation, before the surgery, and then you can actually design some kind of cutting block which is exactly fit for that knee for every patient, and you cannot manufacture it at a large scale because it is personalized to one patient. So now what you can do is you can do a 3D printing of that particular cutting block, and then you have to deliver it to the surgeon, to the hospital, and then they will put it on the knee while doing the surgery, and it will reduce in the overall surgery time will be less, the recovery time is high, the blood loss is less, and the overall efficacy of the implant grows. So in fact, within TCS we are doing one such work. We have delivered for 1 million patients these designs of these 3D cutting blocks, which are then 3D printed by the customer, and then it is actually given to the patient. So these kinds of personalized devices, and there are many more examples if you look at cardiovascular area or multiple areas. So devices also is going to transform. They are going to be more intelligent, more smart than what we see today. And maybe Ramesh, I would request you if you can share a perspective on the devices.
So we do a lot of work with wearable companies, right? So one of our solutions is what we call aging in place. It's designed to keep seniors at home as much as possible. As you know, one of the biggest costs for the healthcare system is when seniors have to go into long-term care. And it's also not something that people enjoy, right? They want to be at home as much as possible. So we have a solution that addresses that. And in that process, we work with a number of wearable companies. And if you can think about it, when wearables first came, it was just a lot of data, and then the question is, so what, right? So now using the data, using AI, ML, you can actually start predicting what is the progression of some of those conditions, when should we do timely intervention. And in this case of aging in place, we are working with a company which actually manufactures a device that goes into your insoles of your feet, right? One of the biggest problems with seniors is when they fall and they have a bad accident, and that essentially they don't recover well from that, and they go into long-term care, right? So how can I predict what their gait movement is? When are they likely to have a fall, and how do I kind of proactively help them with whatever devices and so on, so that we can prevent them from falling, right? So there's a lot of advancement. Similarly, wearables or devices in sleep apnea, trying to diagnose obstructive sleep apnea and a lot of other conditions is something that we work with manufacturers very closely with.
And I think that is where we transform more from a devices perspective to an entire care management perspective, and how you are going to look at preventive health.
Yes.
And the whole person health. So maybe now we'll move to this theme of care management and preventive health. And here actually one interesting area I want to highlight, which is right now you can't say it's a hype or it's a hope, it's a metaverse. So now whether metaverse has a real play in the healthcare, what is happening today, and in fact I will share one data point. Before the pandemic, hospitals' ability to deliver even telemedicine, simple telemedicine services were around 40% or so. And now, after the pandemic, looking at, how they have to transform themselves, it stands at 95%. So how quickly they have adopted telemedicine within the healthcare, and now all this virtual care, remote care, all this is becoming reality, and metaverse is actually going to fuel more such, innovations. So maybe Shantha, if you can share some use cases and some perspective on the metaverse.
Metaverse. Yeah, so I think I'll probably step back into that preventive and care management you talked about a little bit. I think just for a context for everybody, right? I think preventive health has got so much that we can do, and I'm sure all of us, first of all, health is very personal to everybody. I think it is so personal to everybody that it's important we take charge. Every single person takes charge of their care and their health, right? So if you start from that perspective, preventive health has got a lot of things that we have to do in the healthcare ecosystem. One, there needs to be a lot of interoperability in the ecosystem that we need to build. There is still so many silos of even within a health insurance or whether you go into the larger ecosystem. So there's a lot that every company is doing, but there's a lot that needs to be done more with respect to interoperability itself. And then I always think intentional innovation is key, because everybody talks a lot of technologies, but the biggest question to ask for is, what's the biggest problem that you're trying to solve for? And if we are able to find that answer and then you try to apply the technology and then the conversations around, is human in it, is human out of it, I think all of that kind of accordingly comes in. And in my view, that is where I think Metaverse fits. I know there are a lot of people who say, is it hype, is it real, and so many other things. But my biggest thing would be, take a problem that you can truly solve with the combinatorial of technologies. And if I take one example, today in the healthcare industry, we all know in the world there is so much of gap between the doctor and the patient ratios, right? Now you take, generally itself there is a gap, the general doctors, and if I start mapping it to certain specialists, I think the gap only widens more. So if you want to do a surgery right here in Mumbai on a very chronic condition with multiple complexities, and you need a specialist from New York, you're not going to get this person as of today, and if the person is already in the emergency room. So I think what is very important is to look at, for example, taking the previous example that you gave a little bit on that avatar, taking a digital prescription of it, and thereby really go into a certain clinic and get the entire bioprinted, avatar of me or whoever is this chronic condition patient, and be able to get that doctor from New York or the specialist from New York, get it into Metaverse, and truly be able to create that complex, complex simulation or the complex treatment itself. Because the technology allows you to have some haptic sensors and so many more for you to be able to truly touch, feel, and really be able to make it happen. So I think, yes, is the world of that Metaverse today? Maybe not. But I think if we are able to take a very intentional problem and truly bring the combination of those technologies in its truest sense, I think all the digital hospitals, the way we talk, phygital, in fact, I don't want to say digital alone, it's phygital hospitals, truly have to get real. And I'm sure there is a provider who can pick up this for the true purpose of what this is. So that's kind of how I see it on Metaverse. There is a greater advantage of bringing AR, VR, along with 5G, along with the combinatorial technologies that we can bring. I think it truly has that opportunity for us to solve for specific problems like that. And maybe, yes, there are also aspects beyond like a post-care, right? So there are also situations like that that can also be addressed for simulations, educations. There is only so many doctors. So if you truly want to help a primary clinic which is sitting out there in a rural village, it is not possible for the doctor sometimes to go there, but you need that specialist to address something immediately. How can you create some of these simulations and show that as a way for people to really be able to help and do whatever is needed, right? So I truly think there is a potential opportunity and a future that is definitely possible. But yes, we truly have to take a certain problem, like one of the example I feel is a very strong use case for Metaverse.
Good. Ramesh, your perspective?
Yeah. So just want to build on what Shantha said, right? So she gave what the future could be like, right? But we looked at, we worked with some companies which are kind of doing the virtual reality more in today's context. So we worked with a company recently, which is what they call is more into the digital therapy space, right? So these are for patients with neurological disorders, people who've had a stroke, who've recently got discharged. So the current treatment plan would be you go to your therapist maybe a couple of times a week. They do therapy for your motion, for your motor skills, for your cognitive skills, and so on. Takes a lot of time. The patients have to go to the therapist. It's a couple of times a week, more effort, more cost. And so this company is designed to what Shantha said, right? Enough sensors to both track your cognitive and your motor skills. So you wrap on the device and it actually measures what your current state is. And then it designs a number of interactive video games, right? So the whole immersive experience of the patient actually working on those games. And so they are, depending on their current level, the skills and the complexity of the game is varied. And based on those movements, the sensors continue to track and see what progress they're making. So it can be unsupervised. So from the 2 sessions a week, you can actually do 5 to 6 sessions a week. So the recovery time is faster. Patients don't have to go anywhere. They can do it from the comforts of the home. So a huge difference. And to Shantha's point, it's already moving in that direction.
Yeah, this is very interesting. And in fact, just to share with everyone, FDA actually approved one game as a digital therapy for the dementia patients, so for the behavioral changes. So this is where it is going. So probably once you have some neurological issues later on, or maybe some other issues in the on the mental well-being side, you might be prescribed some games rather than a pills to solve that problem.
Absolutely. I had a problem in my hand, so some fingers don't work. So I have, like, I cannot feel. I have no senses. So I actually took one of those VR therapy sessions.
Okay.
To little bit, one is of course, you do those traditional balls, you do all of that which the doctors say, and then you feel engaged, you feel like, okay, I did take a couple of those VR therapy sessions to really, do some movements, and it gives you a little bit of, it gives you some motivation. Okay, come on, Shantha, you can do it. And yes, so that was definitely helpful to me.
So while we talk about all these technology innovations, I want to share one perspective which is on the cancer care side. So how technology will disrupt, and a new cancer care model can emerge, and this is very much applicable for a country like India, wherein we have so many issues, even access. And so I'll just share a very unique perspective on a way to solve a cancer care problem. So today, if you see, most of the time, if you are in that situation, you are looking for who is the best doctor, who is the best hospital, where to go, whether I am getting the right protocol or right therapy, whether it is drug is working, whether I'll have side effects, this and that. So many questions are there, and there are no easy answers here. You have to keep trying. So one model that we are actually attempting within TCS, this is with Tata Medical Center. We have actually we have worked with TMC to set up a translational cancer research center. And in this particular research center, what happens is, once a patient goes into the hospital, on one side you are doing standard of care, and on the other side you are actually taking all the data of that patient and then trying to do a analysis of that patient, and try to personalize therapies, trying to figure out why a drug is not working on that patient, what other drugs could be working on that patient. So this is kind of a new model of translational research, wherein you are actually at one end going through a routine cycle of care, and at the parallel your data is actually now being analyzed separately to figure out how a right intervention could be made. And then we have done a lot of innovations there to figure out how to do a proper risk stratification, how to use genomics and sequencing based technologies to figure out a minimal residual disease in a cancer patient, which today's technique can tell you only say 1 in 10,000 cancer cell, but if you can detect 1 in million, then you have a better chance to treat the patient. So one very unique thing they have done in Tata Medical Center, which I will highlight here for the benefit of everyone. They have actually, for the very complex cases of cancer, leukemia, I'm talking about lymphoblastic leukemia, and for that complex case where the cancer has relapsed and you have no way, as per the standard of care, there is nothing you can try. They have taken patient cells, and those cells they have grown in the lab, and they have actually treated it with different drugs, even with the drugs which are not approved directly for ALL, and based on all the process, they could figure out the low toxicity of different drug which is actually working on those cells, and that is what they have given to the patient based on all the proper guidelines, and then the patient has gone into complete remission. And this was like they have actually altered the course of the treatment by doing this kind of innovation, and the patient is undergoing the standard as well as all this. So this will create new models and new opportunities to look at the patient data, analyze patient data, figure out variable data, genomics data, all this together. You are doing this analytics and then trying to see why patient is not responding or why it is responding, and then make the intervention. So this is where this will probably shape up the future of the care management. And
I want to add one perspective to what you just said, and I think there are a couple of women I see in the room, so I do want to also pass on this a little bit. I think one of the intentional innovation partnership that we did was with because you touched this topic of cancer, and I have somebody personally very close going through one of those moments right now. I think it's extremely important. We actually partnered with this company called Niramai, which is one of our Innovation Council partnership. And so they have this AI-based, breast cancer prediction. And before we start to say that, yes, let's go partner with them and let's go change the world and everything else, I think we first wanted to launch it within our own associates, our own women, our own spouses, whose women, whose wives. And I think the way we were able to do that was completely in our office setup, get all our women proactively go through this breast cancer, campaign. And I think it was very non-intrusive, but it is such a result for you to know on a regular basis, and you're able to do an early detection or an early proactive view of multiple aspects of what the report shows. So, I mean, first is I would encourage, if some of you have not done this, and it is not those mammographic methods and things like, it's completely non-intrusive, and it's a completely AI-based prediction model for us to try that, some of those. So I would encourage, if women or the men, your spouses or your family, whoever it is, I think I would strongly encourage. But I think those are some of those intentional innovations which technology can enable very powerfully and very meaningfully, and especially from the preventive health example that you picked up.
And now, Shantha, we have one more connection. Other than participating in the common panel, we are also talking to Nirmai.
Yeah,
and we are
that's
evaluating
wonderful.
their solution, because we found it very, very, good and proactive.
Proactive, exactly.
Okay, so I think moving on, I just want you to share a little bit about the innovations happening in the healthcare operations, because, so maybe one example each, if you can share.
Ramesh can go first, yeah, please.
Yeah, so this is the area where obviously we do a lot of work, because at the core we are a services company. And so a lot of work we've done, and I think Shantha will also talk about some of the same things, I guess. Let me take the example of clinical documentation, right? So in our work, we deal with a lot of clinical documentation. They could run into tens of hundreds of pages. And so essentially from an efficiency point of view, how do I use AI ML to read through all of those clinical documentation to come to decisions much faster, right? So what takes a clinician about an hour or 2 hours to go through a medical record and come to a decision, can I make it in 15, 20 minutes, right? So we train the models using for the specific use case, and be it a prior authorization, be it a medical necessity review, be it a payment integrity, clinical audit. So all of these use cases, how do I use AI/ML to improve efficiency and accuracy? And more importantly, in some cases, turnaround time may also be important, right? In some of our cases, specific grievance and appeals have to be expedited, right? So how do I use AI/ML to find out if something needs to be expedited or not, and basically handle it in less than 24 hours. So a number of use cases that we are working on for clinical documentation.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, definitely a good portion of what he said is also something that we also do for solving the world problem. But I think when I look at future of healthcare operations, I think the one thing that really comes top of my mind is whole person health and driving health equity by design. I think that is really the philosophy in which we are looking at whatever we do in our healthcare operations. Obviously, there are a lot of IT systems, business operation systems. We manage many things on a day-to-day basis. We manage over than 40 plus million claims on every year. But I think when I look at that health equity and when I look at that whole person health, what we can influence from the IT and the business operation that we do every single day is, one, what can we do to the person who is receiving that care on the other side every single day in terms of the value that we can drive for, right? So it's not so much about the fee for the services that they have to take it from the provider or from the insurance companies, but rather what is the true care the person got. So really shifting the model to value-based care. I think that is one thing we are significantly driving in terms of how we look at almost entire value chain, the process experience part of it, the consumer experience part of it, putting a lot of digital interventions across the board, be it workflow intervention, be it a claims examiner intervention, audits, whatever is possible for us to drive that value-based care. The second aspect, when I look at that health equity, it is about making sure all our plans, end of the day, are truly meaningful for the members who are on the other side. And when we look at what we can do from what we serve, IT and business operations and all of that, there is so much data, like Ramesh said, there is so much data that we have an opportunity to generate, and we are already generating. So that whether it is the EHR data, or whether it is the care data, whether it is the claims data. So what we have done is we have kind of integrated all of this, and if I look at a little bit the gene model that you talked about earlier, if we look at all of these sources of data, lab data and everything, it really brings like a whole person index. And that is what we are looking at in terms of an augmented intelligence, so that it can give us results in terms of, are our plans comprehensive for mental well-being? Are our plans comprehensive for different aspects of health, palliative care, all of those aspects? So I think we see a lot of things that we have already done, more than 500 to 600 plus digital assets we have managed across. but there is a lot more that we all can do to influence that whole person health.
Sure. Great. All good thoughts. So good that we covered across the spectrum from therapies, from drugs, from devices, on the healthcare operations, care management. I just want to, I think we are right about the time. So I'll just summarize this entire message, and I would think that now to bring these innovations, one thing which is very much needed is the collaboration, is the co-innovation. So we all have to, organizations who come out of the boundaries, because the boundaries are also blurring, and think life sciences, healthcare, technology players, they have to converge towards, these new innovations around science and care, these areas. So with that, I think one last message I want to give. I think we have seen during the pandemic how India is being recognized as a pharmacy of the world. And not only that, we have actually these vaccine coming out in record time, and also such a vaccination at a large scale. I think it is India's time, the decade, next decade, wherein we can actually not only develop such healthcare innovations, but also adopt those innovations in practice, and probably create a new healthcare model and show it to the world to follow. With that, I thanks everyone, and thanks Ramesh.
Thank you so much, guys.
For more interesting content, like, comment and subscribe to our NASSCOM YouTube channel.